difficult not actually.
All right, okay.
That's okay. Not actually knowing you all, but I did have a quick catch up with Suzanne before about the types of organisations that you're representing, and it sounds to me as though we have the smaller and the large and the one site and the multi-site and the public sector and the private sector and the third sector potentially. So actually everybody. So therefore, I'll kind of pitch what we're going to talk through in the context of a range of different types of organisations, and I hope from within that you can extract the elements and where it's useful for you. Because a key thing about us all as leading organisations in whatever position we're in is, as you're going to see as I go in here, to keep in our own lane, to be clear about what the impact is at any given moment that we're supposed to bring, and to enable our colleagues to do that as well. My background is in ops, although I've worked a lot in, as Suzanne was saying, leadership, management, change. I do practically still lead my own business. And I have a couple of major consultancy contracts. One is with a multinational, sort of 8 countries global business that's going into private equity sale, and the other is a third generation agri-tech business in Ireland that grows vegetables and packages them and sends them to supermarkets. So it's all about, all that I'm doing is about assisting organisations to understand themselves, to get transparency so that it enables just normal human beings, hopefully like you and I, to work out every morning what's the best use of our time, to go in or to stay in bed, to go and think somewhere on a boat, or whatever. What is it? How to release ourselves in order to bring the best into the organisation. So I hope that as I just run through some thoughts, it is called delegation. It's not your like skills how to delegate. You can go to situational leadership for that or whatever else, other things. It's more holistic to look in our organisations about how do we position ourselves, where do we go so that we can keep the profit coming in and the cash, but also grow the business. Because quite often in our businesses, it's leaders are promoted. We promote ourselves if we're the owners, and we move constantly into roles that we've not done before or haven't been done before in the business. And how do we still manage to keep that right first time environment whilst we also start to build the space to scale up the business and move it forwards? If you do have questions as we go through clarification, please do ask them. Otherwise, there'll be time hopefully for Q&A. And as Suzanne said, I'm more than happy to run through this separately with anybody and do any form of conversation after this as well. So I shall just share my screen. And here we go. So I'm calling this one Stop Being Heroic, and because you can apply this to yourself, or you may have a colleague that you'd like to assist after this, I don't know. But quite often when our businesses are growing, or indeed they might be in a bit more of a crisis scenario, reaction one, we can very much get that feeling that it's all down to me, and businesses can't take that risk. So that's really where I'm coming from here, is that not a single one of us can be the person that's actually making the company survive. If we do, we'd still just be on our own in our own business. So organisations are living full of people who are brilliant, full of people who want to come to work and make a difference to everybody. So how can we stop being a blockage, realise that our indispensability is a risk that we shouldn't be taking, and how can we press that reset button and make leadership choices that let others do the heroics? Because at the end of the day, if any of us are good at leadership, we've already done it. We've been there. We need to move on and do something we haven't done, because that's when we keep learning. And as we keep learning, so we'll keep being humble, because we'll keep making mistakes. And that reminds us that that's what other people will be doing as well. And that's the kind of space that we want to get into. So these are the 4 sorts of things, key messages. Organisations are alive, which means, as with anything, we go out in our gardens every now and again, and everything, the weeds have grown, and this has happened, and that's happened, and this time of year we cut stuff back, and all these sorts of things. So the same is in our organisations. And I think analogy is sometimes quite helpful to use. When we think about it, we'll never ever get to perfection. We just get to a point, a snapshot. Keep in our lane, but work as a team. So having clarity about where is it that I should be working, but being aware of where other people are. And again, particularly if we're in multi-site, if we've been involved in integration with another business, these things become, more or less important. Protecting the right first time environment. So we can sometimes get a bit taken up with change. And how important it is and all that sort of thing. But we forget that the majority of the work in our businesses shouldn't be or should be protected from upheaval. Because as you'll all know from the old change curve, when change happens at that sort of upheaval approach, then that's where we have mistakes. That's when profit disappears, quality goes down, and all those kind of things. So as we grow in our businesses or face challenges, what is that right first time environment that needs to be protected at all costs? Because without it, we will have no cash. And then finally, to be able to choose your impact and unlock others. So organizations are alive. I enjoy a bit of a shadow. I quite like it when I go to a new business and I have to wait in reception for a little while, because that's within a few minutes you can work out what's going on in that business. You hear how people speak or don't, or what's happening. So just looking around, what you've got here is a hospital. I just, if you wait in the reception area of your local big hospital, everyone who's going in or out has probably got a life-changing event happened. They're coming in to have a baby, they're going out one less than they came in. They're going out with an older person who now needs care, or somebody who's broken a leg is going to need support short term, whatever it is. There is change all around us. And I think sometimes when we focus massively on change in an organization, it kind of makes it like something abnormal. But do any of us have a day in our lives when something doesn't change around, and we deal with it and we get on with it? So this ability, motivation, and opportunity is just reminding us that every person who comes to work has certain capabilities. When we interview them for jobs, we focus on what the job needs, but frankly, the job probably only uses about 20% of their capabilities. They've got loads more. And at what point do we actually engage and build relationships to discover that they do speak a foreign language, for example? That might be helpful when you've just merged with a business in another country. They have their own motivations, and that motivation, again, if you're familiar with motivation theory, that their motivations can change overnight. They can go home one person one night, something happens, they come in the next morning, and the reason why they're coming to work is different from yesterday. And so again, are these conversations happening? Are your team leaders, or if you are a team leader, is that the kind of thing that they're focusing on? Is not just productivity, but really understanding these people who are the most precious resource that a business has. And then every person wants the opportunity to contribute to business success. So is it possible to connect? If you mapped out your organization, could you put every single employee on it and show a direct line that they're very aware of how they are contributing to business success, however big or small that might happen to be? And this is really the job of us as leaders, because if we're not able to do those three things or recognize them, why have we employed that person? It's a bit too expensive. So keep in your lane, but work as a team. I think the next picture might be a bit of a surprise. So again, analogy, I find it's very helpful in business. So if you think about a skeleton, we all have one. We're all the same. We've been familiar with it for a number of years. But let's take a little look at one part of our anatomy. If you are meant to be a thigh bone in a business, so you're in a broader operational role where you're managing, like, for example, the whole leg, and you try and put yourself in the knee or put yourself into the foot, you are the problem. And this is part of what I'm wanting to sort of try and help you work out here, that often a lot of us, perhaps more senior in the organization with more responsibilities, think, well, I'll just dive in and I'll do the work of the knee or the foot. Well, if you tried to do that in our own bodies, the whole thing would kind of seize up. And so that's just the point that I want to underline here, is to say, think about where your position is in the business. Where should you be operating, and maximize that? The thigh bone equivalent in a business, for example, should have the skills to coach and mentor, to check the health of the knee. And the knee is the one that is directly affecting the ankle and the foot. And as our businesses grow, particularly for those of you in small businesses where you've had to do everything, and now you're scaling up, you're bringing in one or two people to assist you, this is quite an interesting operation, to sort of move into the right place and establish where it is that you need to be. So this little diagram here is what I've kind of created. As with all diagrams, they're what I call codified common sense. It's just observations in businesses, so it's nothing particularly clever, other than I took a few minutes to step back because clients would sort of ask me to give them some kind of an approach to help them understand their business. So when our businesses start out entrepreneurially, it's all about delivering results. It's about getting customers, doing whatever it is that you do to get paid, to put an invoice out and get those results, and then hopefully to get that same customer again and another job, or another customer and get another one. And you do that for however many years or months or whatever it might be that's relevant to your business. Then you get to a point where you say, can't do this myself. I need to start bringing other people, or you've already got a few people. I now need to do, which is perhaps the most biggest jump for a small business. I now need to bring in a manager. I need to bring somebody that can manage this business instead of me, so I can go on out there and get new business or whatever else that might happen to be. And that's what I call the building capability stage, where now it's not just about delivering today's results, it's about building capability for the future and creating time where you can have those conversations, go and employ more people, go to conferences, whatever it might look like in your industry to build that capability for the future. And then we get to creating space. So this is now where you've got a business where the build capability is really being overseen by the leadership team now. And that could be just one leader with a smaller group of people, or as businesses grow, that's your multiple leaders across a business where they're each managing a site, managing a function, whatever that is. You've got a group of people able to work as a team, sort of laying the road out ahead for people to then deliver the results of the business. And it's happening, and you're turning a bit more into a kind of a cash cow kind of place. And so the creating space is where certain key people, the owners, the C-suite, whoever happens to be in that group, is really able to go out there and engage with what's going on in the world. Some of the things Suzanne was saying about the options that C2S are bringing and the conversations about AI. I was talking with somebody the other day about, how do we develop culture remotely? Because if people aren't coming into the office, this is a whole new concept. And it's these being able to engage in these kinds of creative conversations that haven't happened before, and therefore able to take the business into a different direction. That might be the space where you're talking about buying another business or selling your business to somebody else, integrating, getting strategic alliances. That's all the kind of activity that's going on in the create space. So just to sort of try and pull this together, and again, you're all different backgrounds in your organizations. In your entrepreneurial type businesses, you're driven by opportunities, and it's all about getting that money in. And as the money comes in, you can, you're a fairly tight-knit team, small team, and make it happen, make it up. What I would say, though, is I've personally come across entrepreneurial businesses of over £100 million, where it's still run as an entrepreneurial business. I'm glad about that, because then they buy my services to help them manage the ridiculous amount of risk that they're carrying, because they haven't got a foggiest clue about how to continue it, and it's really got a bit out of hand. Really what you're wanting to get to, I don't really want to put monies on it, because it depends on what it is you're selling, but your small, medium size, your SME businesses are going to be in that middle space where you've really got to focus on cash and profit and EBITDA, and you're building that sort of transparent, you're scaling up. You might have got a few sites now, multiple products, services, whatever that is. And then you've got your larger businesses on the right, where that can be any size. So how do we protect the right first time environment as we grow? So this is your smaller business as it starts off. And this element of business is always going to be in your business, however large it gets, because this is the part that makes the money. Okay, when we talk about and have all these fancy conversations about EBITDA and turnover and everything else at the top, the majority of people talking about it haven't any influence whatsoever on the money flowing in and out of the business, because the money flowing in and out of the business goes in and out by the people who are literally doing the work. So team leaders and the people who are working with them, who are creating the service, delivering it, making the products, whatever it might be you're doing, the team leaders and those people are the people who are managing the money of the business. And the skill of the rest of us, who are actually overheads to the business, we're not part of that, we're overheads, we're costly. We have to, that's why I say, what's our impact? We have to decide what is it we're doing that enables this right first time environment to exist in the most efficient way possible, so that these people here, the team leaders and supervisors, whatever you call them, and the people working in their teams, are able to deliver orders and processes and services and all that kind of thing. So in this right first time environment, you'll typically have a general manager. When I say purple, it's because they're in that building. There is a little bit of color coordination going on here. They're kind of part of that building capability piece, because even in a smallest type of business, that general manager has to report annually in their figures and all that kind of thing. So they're always that somebody who's slightly looking out ahead. But then the green ones are the people who are dealing with today's work. So you've got KPIs and processes set, you deliver those orders to process, you reveal problems, and solve those and have the financial outputs. And that's your fairly simple kind of business that goes through. So what happens as we grow and when we want to start with delegation, and as you can immediately see, we start getting complexity into the business, which is where we start losing this delegation straight line. So once you want to sort of grow up a bit and start, or I say grow up, build your business and really start adding that future capability in so that you can guarantee that 6 months to 12 months on your business is going to be bigger, whatever that means to you. You've got to have people with their eyes on the future. And the sorts of things in that box there, the kinds of activities that those people are doing, the benchmarking, best practices. So in your industry, for example, is turnover, 4%. What are you running at on yours? Is quality, what sort of percentage is quality at? All those sorts of things is finding out what is the environment that is likely to be the best environment to build in the future for your business to be growing. Because having done that, then obviously you can look at, well, what does our right first time environment deliver now? And then what is the difference, if there is one, that we've got to move to? It's about creating, updating relevant processes. So without a process, individuals will apply judgment. That's what's so brilliant about entrepreneurial businesses, because everybody makes up the rules themselves. And that's why they hate being involved. If we're an entrepreneurial character, we hate being involved in other people's processes because it's forcing us to work in a way that we think doesn't allow our initiative. But for a business to grow with more people, more sites, maybe different languages, multiple products, you've got to have process to drive transparency, accountability, and governance and allow that to happen. So there is a key stage here for delegation that you have to have people who understand how not to over-process and not to make it bureaucratic, but have sufficient that there's a clear line of sight from the P&L down through into the environment where the money is being created and back up again. This group have to hold general managers to account, create that environment to deliver finance, and if there is longer term change, manage that as well without affecting that right first time environment. And you'll see I've put in there continuous improvement, because continuous improvement is change that is suggested by team leaders and their teams. So if it comes from them, they believe it already, and therefore they'll make tomorrow better than today, and they do it on a regular cultural basis. And everybody is just working on that and bit by bit. So any change that can happen to make next month better than this month is done as continuous improvement, owned by that right first time environment, not by anybody else. And they'll own it, they'll manage it, they'll still deliver their results, and happy days. So again, at this build quality, at this stage, when we're talking about what do we need to create in our organizational design, you can see there I've put in functional leads. This is when your business might start saying, we need somebody to lead on HR or on EHF. We're talking here about sustainability, B Corp, that kind of thing. The agri-tech company I'm with, when we went through this ourselves there, we used the opportunity of actually putting all of their leadership at risk, which was a bit desperate. But anyway, there we are. We created a new role of head of sustainability because it was really, really important for the customers that they could see that that was going to be a future desire of the business to stretch out in that direction. So at this build capability, if your business is heading into this, or it has been in there for a while and perhaps needs a bit of a refresh, so that you can ensure people are focusing and yourself is focusing on what you need to be doing, it's kind of clarifying what leadership you're needing in the different functions that are the ones that actually are going to make your business go. There's no point in having a functional leader to oversee business that isn't changing. That's the responsibility of delegating through KPIs into that bottom level of driving productivity. So we only want to have functional leads where, again, an example Suzanne just mentioned about HR. There's a lot of change in employment law and that sort of thing. And that tends to be why at a certain point in your business's life, you either outsource it. That's often the first stage, is you buy in that expertise. And then you get to a point when you say, we actually want somebody here full time now that can focus on that and get into that. And then we don't have people like me as general managers who just make it up and put the business at risk as it goes forward. So these are the sorts of conversations that a vast majority of businesses, I can't remember the percentage of Britain that is at this level. It's a huge amount of businesses. I think about 90% of businesses, SMEs, are very much simply, this is where they get to. And this is to keep delegation straightforward. What I call simplify and execute is to make sure that at this build capability level, that is all overhead and an investment in the future. So we talk about CapEx and buy new machinery or whatever that might be for our businesses, but sometimes this is also CapEx. I don't know what terminology you want to give to it, but all of the money you're paying out, and you can see it on the P&L for the group of people who are at the build capability, is investment in the future. It's not delivering today's business. And again, remember that skeleton. If they do start delivering today's business, they're in the wrong job. You've got other people you've employed to do that. So when we come back to delegation, if you find that your functional leads, your operational managers at this level are delivering the business, then they're getting in the way, and they are now becoming a risk to the business. And more to the point, do they know how to manage performance? Therefore, at the drive productivity, are they creating that environment for these other people to deliver the financials of the business? So it's hands off at this level. The next level up on creating space is, as you can see, gets even more confusing. And this is why the larger the organization we become, or if maybe you move to be a leader in a larger organization, it's absolutely critical to identify what the impact is of what of these three levels, because it doesn't matter what size organization, frankly, you can break it into these three levels. A big organization might have 2 or 3 levels within one of them, but you'll still be very clear as to whether you're in the green, the purple, or the yellow, or which mixture of those. So what we're talking here now at the yellow level is a board level, a C-suite, or whatever you might happen to call it in your organization. And this is often where you've got investors, so somebody else that owns it, you've got shareholders, equity holders, whatever it might be. So you need people who can spend a significant amount of the time keeping other people happy. That's basically what the top group does. That's why they're out and about. And if any of you are in that space, that's what you have to do. And it's exhausting because these people often aren't in the same country as you, or the same place, or the same time zone. You've got to demonstrate corporate governance, massively important, and ensure you have that sustainable culture and organization. Because by now, if you're at this sort of level, you've got a huge number of employees, all of their mortgages, all of their school education, their holidays, everything that those individuals want to be brilliant about at work so they can continue having a salary and draw that and do whatever it is that they do in their personal lives. This is now needs to be a business that is on strong ground and can continue to do that. And also, it will be having a huge effect on the communities that it's operating within. So let's take, for example, a business, I think we probably all are aware of them, Gymshark, just because it's only 10 or 11 years old. And it's that kind of a business, it's sometimes easier if it's not ours, that you can see, it started in the garage down the bottom, making it, Ben Francis was doing all of it himself. And then it got to a certain point where he started getting a few more people and got an office, and then you get into build capability, and now they're big time at the top there, setting up shops and stuff like that all around the world and keeping people happy. But it's so massive now that it's a completely different creature to making T-shirts in the garage. And that's why each of us, as I'm going on in a moment, say, what's our impact? That's why as each of us move and evolve through this, we have to develop our skills, because if we don't, we become a blockage. So what I want to show also on this, I think it's on this slide, I'm just going to check on, yeah, that's right. As you look, I'm going to go back to that last slide in a moment to sort of help do it. But as you can see here, through our development in choosing our impact, there are skills that we need to have at all these different levels. And the purple one, which is typically what we call our middle management, operational management, whatever you want to call it, is usually where there's the most blockage in a business. Anybody in the purple needs to put themselves out of work every 2 years. They do not have a job for life. We do not have a job for life at that level. A team leader has a job for life. We always need a team leader. And the people at the top, if they generally have some equity in the business, they own it, whatever it might be, they have to be there to keep the investors happy if that's the size of the organization we're at. But building capability, the capability we're building this year and next year is not the capability we're building the next 2 years on. And it might be that the capability we build the following 2 years needs me to go and relearn some skills, to go and dust myself down, to go and have a break. Maybe I might have had, I might be burnt out after what I've done for the last couple of years, and I need to reset in order to be useful. And I think that view of delegation in the middle there, when a business delegates to a leader to build capability of the future, there needs to be really pragmatic conversations there. It's not a job for life. It's an overhead, as I say, the purple ones are an overhead to the business. And those characters there, we've got to be at the top of our game. We've just seen the Olympics, and it's a lot of that training that goes into that behind the scenes to be seen for a few minutes. That's the kind of characters that we're looking for there in the purple piece, where we know what our job is, we know what we're meant to be doing, and then we enable other people to be brilliant in the green area. So as I say, again, some of the developmental piece, the purple bit. So if you were the owner of your business and then you employed other people, so you kind of became the general manager, if you like, and now the business has grown more and you brought more people on. It is, if you're one of those people, you probably think back to the complexities and why it was you didn't understand lots of things, because it's a completely new role that you need to do. And how often did you get dragged back into still moving pallets around and doing the stuff on the ground because other people didn't? And part of that is because you need to learn the skills of not doing and explaining it to enable somebody else to do it. But then in that middle part, as I say, in the purple areas, you can successfully work in that space for years because there are so many different functions to learn, so many different ranges of things. If you ever want to become a COO in the future, then you need to do all of the functional roles. You need to learn all of them so you can learn the full business and everything that's involved within that. As software changes, technology changes, there's one reason I'm choosing not to do that sort of thing myself anymore. I'm completely out of date. We're working in a business and all the different technology and everything else like that that's necessary. And there comes a point when we realize, do you know what? I don't want to do that anymore, but I can still unlock other people to assist them to do it. And that skill of delegation is, as we said before, review and clear the blockages. I'm creating, just be really aware of what it is when you come to work, how you as a privileged leader can ensure you can continue to let your people and business thrive. So year on year, month on month, however often you do it, double check, what is the blockage that I'm creating? How can I delegate so I can go and have a holiday? If I'm not here, if I need to go and do something that needs my experience, perhaps, I don't know, somewhere else in my community needs me, whatever that might be, how can I leave the business? In a bigger business, I always say that somebody in that purple space should be able to be away from their business for 2 to 3 months and nobody would notice. That's what delegation is, because you're not part of the right first-time environment. That should be happening without you. And it might be in a global company that you're needed to be seconded somewhere else. And you should be free to go because you're an overhead to the business. So if you can add more value there than where you are here, that's fine. It's why everybody must take 2 weeks holiday at a time at some point or another. That's not an HR requirement. It's not employment law. We need to know what are the problems you're covering up, because you never go away. And then realize that we can press the reset button anytime to make leadership choices. Every day for a leader is a new page. And we can give ourselves that breathing space, that today, tomorrow, whatever, is a fresh page, a fresh chapter, and choose to behave and act in a different way. So there we are. I hope that's prompted a few things, and we've got time for some questions if you have. As I said before, more than happy to engage in conversation away from this, because I know that the organisations you're all in are all quite different. But this is a little bit just to leave you with, these 26 steps toolkits is something that we have to assist to get into those different levels. As people get promoted, they're things that you coach within an organisation. So particularly one of the things that I've discovered is that well, as you'll know, that when we send people off on training courses, and when they come back, they go, oh, well, it's not like that, or yeah, whatever. And people just say, forget that, that was all right there. But in actual fact, the majority of what we learn from our line managers in our businesses. And particularly if you do own your business, if it's a smaller business, you might say, I don't know what to share. I don't know how to do this. And that's what the 26 steps toolkits will do, is give you a mechanism to share how the business works and engage in conversations with your people. So you've actually controlling your leadership development. When I say control in the right kind of way, overseeing it in your organisation. And if any of you are wanting to stretch your sort of at the executive leadership level, sorry, the dates on there are this year's, but next year will be the 9th to the 13th of June. So that's a residential programme where the likes of some of us can put our heads around some of these knotty problems and think about that for our businesses. Thank you very much, Susan.